Welcome to another episode of the AKI Built Podcast. I'm your host, Alexa Crozier, and today we're diving into a topic that every healthcare innovator, medtech marketer, and business-to-business strategist needs to hear: rethinking market strategies, a fresh approach to patient engagement. Joining me today is Igal Ladabaum, a veteran of medical device innovation and now CEO of Hospi Corporation. His team created the Macy Catheter, a transformative tool that's helping hospice and palliative care nurses deliver fast, compassionate symptom relief without IVs. Today we'll explore how Igal's unique path from engineering to entrepreneurship has shaped his thinking on go-to-market strategies in a highly regulated, relationship-driven field. Igal, could you briefly introduce yourself, your role at Hospi, and what drew you to focus on hospice and palliative care?
Absolutely. Thanks, Alexa. So, Igal Ladabaum, and briefly, my background, originally I was trained as an engineer here nearby in Berkeley. I reside in the San Francisco Bay Area. And then also after in electrical engineering at Stanford. And I sort of grew up in a household that was healthcare oriented. My two brothers are physicians. My dad worked in the pharmaceutical industry, and I was always interested in this merging of engineering and healthcare. And importantly, when I was in undergrad and grad school, found techniques to use the same technologies used to make computer chips to work on things at scale, at the scale of where healthcare matters, with tiny little things. And my career evolved from the ultrasound business, generally as a sensors and biomedical bioengineer, ultrasound business into the hearing aid business. And it was during the hearing aid stint when I was dealing with people of more advanced age, and my own family started to experience the things that happen with grandparents passing and that sort of thing. So I developed an insight and a soft spot, and both of the companies that I was part of had the privilege of being acquired, and it was after the acquisition of the hearing health company that one of my friends and mentors, Dr. Rich Popp, who's one of the fathers of echocardiography, had a family friend, Brad Macy, who was a hospice nurse taking care of people after hours, and let me know that Brad had come up with this unique intervention of administer fluids and medications to patients when they had difficulty with the oral route, difficulty swallowing, either due to nausea and vomiting or some sort of, declining condition like Parkinson's or any number of things that happen in the palliative hospice near end of life space. And so I met Brad. And I can talk more about the product and what we do, et cetera. But how I got involved is I was looking for something that could have high impact, that might be more self-evident. And Brad's approach to administering fluid and medications in a very practical way attracted me. And so we co-founded the company, and here we are, FDA cleared, patented, and out in the marketplace.
I love that. It's a brilliant product. What inspired Hospi to invest so deeply in a simple yet scalable solution like the Macy Catheter?
So the primary aim, which is to, and we're a more, I've been in the med tech industry. Brad Macy, my business partner and co-founder, is a nurse. And so this is more of a nursing-oriented company, meaning that we don't aim to diagnose or treat the disease itself. We try to optimize the trajectory of illness for the patient, make sure they have the highest quality of life possible under their condition. And, here was Brad, who was an after-hours hospice nurse, really showing up at home during what can be tragic or can be beautiful moments, right, where people are near the end of life. But they get tragic if symptoms are not under control. And that's where we recognized that here was something that allowed people to receive very important medications and, when appropriate, fluids without delay and without the need to go to the hospital, not meeting goals of care, maybe transitioning out of hospice. So you asked, what's the motivation? Pure and simple, just alleviating unnecessary suffering. and as quickly as possible. And we recognized there was a hole in the marketplace, so we actually also had a business. But even our early investors have always been sort of double bottom line folks, right? Where we want to do good by doing well. And everyone has had end of life experiences or will have them. I used to joke, right? In my early investor pitches, I actually had a slide from The Onion that had death rate holding steady at 100%, right? And it says, like, despite medtech's best efforts, right?
We're all a customer at this point. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
And with that mission in mind, so you partnered with Nurse Julie McFadden, as we discussed, showcasing her book launch. So how important
yep.
then is that storytelling, the real world collaboration to your patient engagement approach?
Yeah, Julie's terrific, and we're one of her early collaborators in her domain. It's also a really interesting phenomenon. When we started the company, I would have never imagined that for something as intimate as hospice and end-of-life care, folks would turn to social media. Mm-hmm. But fast forward, and we're getting a lot of our more trusted sources without the filter, without sort of the corporatese filter, direct from the voices that folks can trust. And there are other voices out there in hospice and palliative care, but Nurse Julie had a very pragmatic, sort of disarming way to enter into difficult conversations. And we really thought we could team up and try to get a frank discussion out there about some of the difficult things that happen near the end of life. And by demystifying them, providing comfort not only for the patients, but for the loved ones that have to deal with it, and provide information that's useful and practical that helps people get through this most human of transitions, which is folks passing away.
So she's creating that conversation too with real people, like everyday people who may not even be in the health space. So what does that say generally about the shifting from more product-centric to community-centric marketing in medtech?
I think a little context is helpful here, because not only are we dealing with death, which is kind of a taboo subject, perceived to be a taboo subject, but
Correct.
We don't talk about it, at least in North America, very much in our culture. And on top of it, our product actually is an indwelling rectal catheter, of all things. Mm-hmm. So what Brad, as a hospice nurse, discovered is that transforming the rectal route to one that's discreet and dignified, so you don't have to violate a patient's privacy for repetitive doses. We just put a tiny, comfortable little tube that folks can't feel. It's held in place with a little inflatable balloon, and it allows people to immediately get relief from important medications and fluids when appropriate. So, but zoom out, we're not only talking about death here, we're talking about the rectal route and all the ick factors and societal stigma, related to that. So that's a double whammy, right? Yeah. And you can deal with it with some degree of humor when it's appropriate, but...
Let's talk about butts, yeah.
But exactly. In the end, what it comes down to is, even in the healthcare system, there's a bit of perception of that. So we'll have some nurses who know the benefits of the rectal route. And by the way, we transform it to being far more reliable, because we give a little microenema, a tiny little bit amount of fluid. So it's not the old suppositories or things that are unreliable and require repeated repositioning in violation of the patient's privacy. But despite all these benefits, which a frontline nurse may be aware of, they might say, well, my patients will never accept that, right? And Brad and I and all of our team know better. If somebody has intractable nausea and vomiting, and you provide them a method of almost near instantaneous relief, like within 15 minutes, they'll sign up for it, right? So just because somebody has rectal administration stigma or perception of stigma, I've talked to folks, who are in very, take care of patients in very wealthy sort of hoity-toity areas, and they say, my patients will never go for that. It's like, you don't know what you don't know yet, and we have a lot of success when we go through it. So this is a long-winded answer back to your question, which is, why are we turning to more community-based conversations, if you will, to get things going. And we view it as the long game of engaging in conversations where we have to reduce the stigma of the rectal route simply by providing information from trusted sources that says, hey, this works and it is painless and it's used in these situations, as well as conversations about palliative care, hospice care, that there are ways to get relief in complicated healthcare situations that folks should be aware about, right? 100%. And we found that, I found that when I had one-on-one conversations with people, I didn't get any of the stigma. I got some jokes, but I wouldn't get any truly foundational stigma. On the contrary, everybody got a sense that, oh yeah, I could see how that works, and if it's dignified, then we should do it. So we're looking for ways to amplify those trusting conversations without the filter of people who may have a different agenda or a different perception, right? And so 100%. We're trying to, it's this sort of hybrid conversation of driving demand in the long game from the end receivers of the technology in order to motivate the healthcare system, which is very resistant to change, to do something.
100%. I think, and with the real sort of everyday people that see this happening, the nurses, the doctors, particularly the palliative care nurses that are there constantly, 24/7 sometimes. Good luck swallowing something when you can't literally swallow. And then when you introduce Hospi to a new partner organization, so we were kind of getting into that, there was some resistance. What would you say is the hardest part of that business-to-business journey?
The business-to-business journey is that there are multiple different stakeholders when we're introducing at a partner organization. So for example, you could have a frontline nurse that has been right at the bedside with somebody with terminal agitation, literally climbing the walls, obtunded, maybe not able to swallow very well, and is really symptom chasing, trying to get them comfortable. And so they'll immediately say, okay, I can see how this would work, right? But then there might be somebody up at the C-suite who says, why should we spend any money at all doing anything different when we take care of our patients just fine? Thank you very much, right? So they don't necessarily see some of that. So you have to first highlight the issue. And by the way, there are interesting things changing in our industry where CMS, Medicare, is forcing hospice companies to measure the symptom impact of 8 key symptoms and report on it. And that kicks off this October. So some things even that we don't have to do, the regulatory regime is, strangely enough, getting it right this time, right? And so folks will know in the C-suite that they have more of an issue than they think they have, and they'll need to invest in more rapid symptom control. Now that investment more than pays for itself, because symptom crises are the most costly things that these agencies, face. But, you asked what that was. It's getting through the various different veto points when you have a fundamentally initially controversial or stigma adjacent thing like the rectal route. And then you have to convince them that there's a return on investment, that there's an ROI. And that's taken us a while to get, the hard numbers in this industry, because it hasn't been as quantitative as others. Now it's much more so, folks embracing electronic medical records and the ability to generate data sets that show differences. But, you asked what the issues were. One is just that sort of rectal stigma, and the other is demonstrating the return on investment, because sadly, hospice and palliative care isn't used to investing in technology to provide the services that they need to provide as much as, say, other branches of healthcare, specifically medical devices, right? And so we need to demonstrate that to them.
Well, then when you're selling, so if you're selling into a hospice or post-acute care system, Are the pain points more clinical than administrative or sales cycle related?
They're not as much clinical. So the clinical pain point comes later. Once you even get a good yes, you still have to affect change at scale within that system. But that's not when we're selling. That's what we call part of the implementation process, where we have to educate folks who maybe didn't learn this in medical school or nursing school yet, because we're an emerging standard of care. We're not standard of care yet. So it's that change of practice that comes later. Up front on the sales process, it's more sales cycle related, because frankly, I think we can demonstrate clinically it makes sense, and we can demonstrate that economically it makes sense. I mean, it's faster, safer, less expensive than alternatives when you're facing a symptom situation. But sometimes folks have a lot of stuff going on, and so what's the sense of urgency to pay attention? We used to joke around, it's like, hey, if your house is on fire and we have a fire extinguisher, you don't have time to talk to us about the fire extinguisher because your house is on fire, right? Yeah. And I'm not claiming the entire industry's house is on fire, but everyone has their day-to-day challenges, and we have a pain point that happens all the time. But if some of their patients aren't comfortable quickly until this new reporting thing, not much happened to the hospice agency, right? So even if you had one very forward-thinking clinician who really wanted to pull this in, you still have to get everybody to move. So I think it's a sales cycle thing that you talked about. And so full circle, if folks hear from Nurse Julie that the Macy catheter works and helps, and then they go to their hospice and they say, why didn't Grandpa get a Macy catheter?
Totally.
Suddenly the sense of urgency starts to change a little bit, right?
Yeah, the pressure from the people. And then would you say, for a visibility standpoint, what's been the most effective? Those digital creation, like that Julie McFadden content, trade shows, referrals based?
Well, to be honest, in terms of getting to our primary customer, who are the hospice agencies, are, the people we exist for are the patients and families who would be benefiting from hospice services. But the people who actually buy, utilize, prescribe the Macy catheter are those. So we've found that some trade show mixed with direct channel outreach from us has been the most effective. Some of the more community-based stuff is, as I say, a longer game to sort of raise awareness.
Mm-hmm. So what are leaders in this space, being more the palliative care, the business to business, the people that you're working with that you're either selling this product to or educating them? What do they wish they had more of to make that a resounding yes?
So there are two different potential objections requiring additional information. One is they would like some hard economic ROI data. If we spend money on this, are we saving costs? Are we getting more revenue? How is this more than paying for itself, and how? Yeah. And I think we can provide that increasingly more than we used to, because we have now some very sophisticated customers with whom we're building use cases. And we have new capabilities where we can tap in with their permission to their own medical record database and say, hey, of your existing patient load, these people are getting a bunch of unscheduled visits because of symptom crises, and you could really not only do right by them, but do right to your agency by doing that. So it's sort of hard-nosed data related ultimately to the economics of it. Then let's say somebody either doesn't require that because they're already sold or beyond that phase. Then the next thing is actually support in educating both the prescribers, because it's a prescription device, so typically the docs or the nurse practitioners, and then the frontline nurses on when to use it, why to use it, and how to use it is really simple. That's not the issue. Any That's one of our advantages. Training's like 5 minutes on how to use this thing, and folks could even probably do it almost with minimal training, of a licensed frontline nurse. But choosing when and why to use it, folks would like more of our support and some of our content to do that. And that's where we've been playing around. There's an increasing reduction in attention span across the board. A prescriber's not going to sit through even an hour training. I mean, these are busy doctors, right? So we've had some half-hour training modules, and now we're doing little 5-minute things, right? You don't need more than 5 minutes if you're a doc to understand what this is about. If you want to dig deeper, maybe we go deeper. So we have developed, educational materials. Folks are having lower attention spans and unpredictable schedules, so things need to be on demand and easily digestible.
Yeah.
So we're doing more of that now.
Do you use your expertise and experience to lead conversations publicly? Like, do you see that more of a value of growing Hospi?
I think that might be ahead for us. I've started to do it more and personally speak at some other conferences, especially around this new regulatory change that's called HOPE. But that's an important change in the industry. So wrapped around that, because symptom management is the emphasis of this change, and because we have technology about symptom management, I think we want to be synonymous with expertise in symptom management in that. So getting out there and getting the word out is important.
Wonderful. That about wraps it up for us. And thank you for joining me. It's been a real insight into what it means to rethink market strategies, not just from the sales perspective, but a deep respect for the patients, caregivers, the clinicians. They're all at the heart of the work that you guys do. So from the innovation behind the Macy catheter to your growing presence in the field, it's clear that your team is leading with purpose, precision, and your approach to patient engagement through the educational pieces, the partnerships, and simplicity. It's something every medtech company should learn from. So for those listening who want to learn more about Hospi or connect with Igal, you can visit hospicorp.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, do not forget to subscribe and share it. It helps keep spotlighting the leaders who are shaping the future of healthcare.
Been a pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm Alexa Crozier. This is AKI Built Podcast, your bridge to the intelligent future.